Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Career Jitsu podcast. Today is going to be an exciting day for everyone. A lot of great insight is coming your way in this podcast. I'm going to start with a question because I've been recently wanting to start a question to our audience, our listeners, and our viewers. My question today is, what are the most essential lessons for people to learn both on the mat and in the workplace? We have an expert that can help us today on that. So the gentleman today is Eric Sparaza. Eric is a black belt in BJJ, and he is an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurship and jiu-jitsu go very well together for success. So he is a successful individual in his professional life as well. He is a corporate trainer. So he does some sales training. He also is involved in instructional design, I guess, for corporations. He has done a lot of public speaking, and he also has done some MC work for events and promotions. So he's going to talk about all of this stuff and its connection to the art of jiu-jitsu. So welcome to the podcast, Eric.
Hey guys, welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Eric, we appreciate your time here. And I am extremely excited to talk to you because in my past life, I did a lot of corporate training as well. And I remember that it's kind of like you eat what you kill. You have to go out. You are a salesperson. You have to take a lot of rejection. You have to work hard to make your connections. You have to network. It's kind of like the art of jiu-jitsu. It's a hard thing to do. And then after you do all that, you have to over deliver.
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure that your client thinks I got more than I paid for. So I am so excited to hear about your career development, some of the things you've learned. And as a business teacher, I know a lot of my students are going to be watching this, and I'm excited to get some advice for them as they go into their business careers on how to sell yourself, how to present yourself, and those things really anybody in the workforce is going to benefit from. So thank you so much for coming in. And let's start off with your professional career. Where did it start? How did it start? And how did you build up to be your own man with your own clientele?
Let's see. I want to give credit where credit is due to one Bob Sparaza. Bob Sparaza, my father, is a guy that is, in my opinion, too smart for his own good. My dad should have been a professor at Villanova or an author or some type of, Rhodes Scholar. My dad spent his career in sales. My dad graduated from Villanova University and got into sales. And from a very early age, supported my family as a road warrior. He worked for a medical publishing company. And I can safely say that almost 5 out of 5 days a week, he was on the road driving through the Northeastern Corridor with Blue Cross Blue Shield, American, Red Cross, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. His company made, if you remember back in the 80s and 90s, there were those little colored pamphlets in your school nurse's office that said, all you should know about AIDS or all you should know about Lyme disease. And they had little stick figures on them. That company was my dad's company, and he was just
Wow.
a grinder road warrior. And I remember being a little kid as a Gen Xer, pop culture was through the roof. And there was no greater day in school than show and tell, because you got to show what new pop culture tchotchke you got, right? So, all the other kids are bringing in G.I. Joe, He-Man, and all of these, Strawberry Shortcake. And I remember being 6 a.m. in the morning, sitting with my dad at the kitchen table with a coloring book his company makes, like why we should, be, more cautious about what we put in our body. Let's talk about unhealthy fats. And I'm like, Dad, I just want to bring a transformer in. Like, I don't want to do this. And yeah, I would have to just sit there and, he's like, no, this is really important. And like looking back in retrospect, I'm like, was he like lead fielding? Was he just sending me in there to get some warm leads out of that school? But
Warm leads.
honestly, that really was the beginning of it. That's when I really started developing the passion for being able to sell a need, or sell, I should say, an end to somebody's need. My dad became my biggest mentor and tutor in my life. I got into entry level mortgage sales, like commission only, 9 in the morning till 9 at night, 6 days a week. And my dad was the guy that was cheering me on. When I got my first sales team, he bought me a book by Jeffrey Gitomer called The 12 and a Half Principles for a Successful Salesperson. 12 and a Half Principles is what the nickname is for that. But he gave me this and he said, I give this to all of my sales guys when they first start. Because at this point now, he was a regional manager. His territory was like a third of the country by that point. And I just never forgot that, you know, and I remember as I started having kids, my wife and I were on kid number 2. That grind was getting old. That 6 days a week, 9 to 9, staying there till 1 in the morning, you know, on the last day of the month to make sure all my deals closed. If you ask my oldest daughter's 27, and you ask her what time was like with dad when she was little, and she'd say, well, Saturday we'd go to his office. And I would watch Wonder Woman movies in a conference room. And if I was really good at like 5 or 6, we'd go get something to eat. So I was looking for a change in how I could take the success that I experienced in sales and my love for bringing people up to the scratch. And what I mean by that is, as a sales manager, I didn't like the side of the job that was just chasing Excel spreadsheets. And, you know, Frank, I'm sure you can appreciate just having to go like, what is your call to app ratio? What is your app to submission ratio? What's your submission to close ratio? Like chasing those micro managing numbers down was not for me. I didn't like that. But what I loved was taking some guy or gal off the street and giving them an opportunity to sell loans and to teach them every positive step that I've made, show them the negative steps, tell them why we don't step there, and then watch them take off. Like that was the part of the management job that I loved. The recruiting, the interviewing, the hiring, bringing people up and watching them succeed. And now I watch people as a sales manager that I'm working basically with and for, and they work for me, and we're all, you know, grinding together. And these people are pulling up suddenly in BMWs and Mercedes Benzes, and they're buying their first house or a bigger house. And I thought to myself, this is it. This is what I love about this gig. You know, I think about
Do you still give do you give your people the 12 and a half principles?
it's funny that you said that. My son is now 20, former high school wrestler, jiu-jitsu guy, currently a salesman. On his first day at Verizon, I gave him a copy of Jeffrey Gitomer's 12 and a Half Principles. I recommend it to all of my students. It's usually on the budget of the person that put me in that classroom on what I can give out. But any person I know in my life that starts a sales career, I always write a little forward in the beginning on the first page, sign it, and I give them a copy. That's what my dad.
You just out of my curiosity, that is a book that I have not read, but I absolutely will be buying it on Amazon after this interview. I'm definitely interested in that. Can you just give me one of the principles that you think was very helpful to you?
Sure. One of the things that Jeffrey talked about a lot in that book was the disaster that is going in and being a presenter and not a consultant. You know, a presenter goes in and presents a little PowerPoint slide or a video and leaves. A consultant doesn't know what you need yet until they sit down and they actually qualify what your issues are. Who knows? You may not even have a product for them, but you don't know until you find out their need list. Only then can you consult them on the best possible avenue for the two of you to succeed. And Gitomer talks immensely about the downfall of being just the doctor that gives prescriptions without seeing the patient. That's what a presenter is.
I love that. And I'm sure you've read Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Decades
It's,
ago.
yes, great. And they all say basically that same thing. It's that string theory, right? You can't push a string. You have to pull a string,
Yeah.
right? And the only way to pull a string is to ask questions and to get to know them. That is a great piece of advice for
Frank,
anybody in
now so
sales.
more than ever, it's important that people know that the old way of sales is done. Like this, the internet, you know, what we're on now has destroyed the careers of the swindling salesperson, right? Because I take my kids to a car dealership, I can pull up that Kelly Blue Book and sit down right there.
With the VIN number,
Exactly.
that one,
So
you can
it's
get the
not about having the best psychology as far as what can I say, what magic phrase, what honey can I pour in somebody's ear to have them blindly follow beside me like, you know, the Pied Piper. That thought That mentality of sales is over. Now it's about building trust. Now it's about, listen, let's forget this whole deal for a second. I want to find out who you are. Who are you guys? What are you into? What is your family life like? You married, you have kids, you must be busy. Now I understand why you have a need for X, Y, and Z. That trust building is what is going to win the day now in sales. It's all about rapport building, it's finding connective tissue, it's building trust on that connective tissue, and only then do you present yourself in the role of a consultant. That is the path to success. That used car salesman way of doing business, that died the day they turned on the internet.
Absolutely. I mean, there's still a vestige of that.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
I
especially in used cars,
I'll
but
tell you
not in
what, when
everything.
I see it, it's laughable though, right? Because being a sales trainer by day, and not only that, but like coming from like a New York Italian Irish family, like we tell you, I wasn't brought up to fall for everything that comes down the pike. So like when you see someone still operating both professionally and personally, I find it just sad. I really do. That to me is a dinosaur of a salesperson.
Yes.
The
Yes.
new people that are saying, "Hey, I don't know your world. Teach me about it. I'm curious. I want to listen. I want to actively listen to what you have to say. And only then will I know if I have something for you or not. And if I do, I'll show you. And if not, I'll tell you. Because hopefully you'll refer me to the next person."
You know, it's so interesting because my son 1 year ago bought a car and we did a lot of research. We found a car. It was 2 hours away. Talked to the guy on the phone. I said, I just want to know two things. Has this been, how many owners, and has it ever been in an accident? And he said, never been in an accident, one owner. We took a 2 hour ride, met the guy. He was gregarious. He had kids in college. I had a kid in college. Family guy, well dressed, really nice conversation. I know nothing about cars, so I took it to a mechanic to do the 100, I paid the $80.
Sure.
He showed me that car was bent. It was actually bent. I'm like, I didn't see that. He's like, well, you're not trained to see this, but I'm like, the guy who's selling me this, what would he know? He's like, absolutely. The door doesn't even shut the right way. This car was in a nasty accident. Do not buy it. And he gave me a whole printout. And I went
Wow.
back and I put it on his desk and I said, I'm sure you already know this. You have kids. You have kids. I have a kid right here. Here you go. And then we went to a better place where the guy asked, so why do you need the car? Where are you in your career? Does it have to look good? Is it something sporty? He got to know my son and then he stayed in the actual budget. Who does that? Who
Crazy.
does that? Right? So that's the juxtaposition that you just explained
Yeah.
in the real time.
It's a sin. I took my son car shopping last summer, and I start every conversation the same way. I said, "Listen, I'm a career sales trainer. Before that, I was a career sales manager. And before that, I was on the floor. All right, treat me with respect, shoot me from the hip, and we can do business. I'll do business. If you're not straight with me and you're not going to be level with me, then I'm just going to leave." And it doesn't matter how many managers you bring. I know the whole, second voice thing. Like I get it. And the guys that chuckle me away and said, "This guy thinks he's a sales guy," and then tries to proceed to give me a line, we left. I just said, "That's it. Thank you." And the ones that heard me out and said, "Fair play. Let's talk." Those are the guys that I entertained. I bought a car for my son from one of those guys that was like, "Hey, you know what? I respect what you're saying. I got kids too. This is for your okay, let's sit down, let's get real." Same situation, Frank. The guy was
Right.
really, really, really accommodating. And not only that, but talk to me like a peer and not like a mark, right? And that's the difference. When we talk
Yes.
about pro wrestling, I'm a big pro wrestling guy. I don't know if you guys are into pro wrestling or not, but I grew up in an old school New York Italian Catholic family and an Irish family, respectfully, and pro wrestling it was big in New York coming up. Bruno San Martino and superstar Billy Graham and all those guys. And I grew up a big wrestling fan, and I found out as I got older the terminology. There's inside talk within that business. There's a slang within that business that I found pretty amusing. They call fans marks. They call fans marks
Mm.
because they're putting on a show. They're faking a fight, and the person they're faking it for, the person they want to believe the most, is you. So just like a pickpocket has a mark, pro wrestling has mark fans, right? And I find it interesting when I go into a car dealership and people are salivating like you're a mark, like you're a
Yep.
target. That in any sales capacity is a no-go for me. How I teach the next generation of professional loan officers and operations specialists, and you name it. The first rule of thumb is sincerity. It's honesty. There's something to be said about being able to shine that sincerity so much that people say, hey, listen, that other guy is actually giving me a better financial deal, but I actually trust you more. I like you more. And that's why I'm giving you the business. That to me is the biggest compliment, is that my sincerity was enough. That even though you could save $3 down the street, you would still do business with me. That's the power of sincerity now in sales.
I trust consulting is really what you're talking about.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and also the mindset, the mindset, the sales training mindset, and you related that to jujitsu too, because like, I can't speak in terms of corporations, but I can speak in terms of jujitsu, how important it is to have a great mindset on the mats. So can you talk a little bit about your jujitsu and how that has
My
helped you in
gosh.
your sales, corporate sales training as well?
Sure, I would love that. So I started jujitsu in a different way than I guess a lot of folks my age did. A lot of hobbyist dads came in there and saying, I'm looking for a new way to exercise, or I saw this on Rogan or something, right? But I had this delusion of grandeur, guys. So let's break down the white belt mindset for a second, if you don't mind. So I going back to the conversation of those long days in sales, those, bell to bell, 6 days a week to make sure there's food on the table. I wound up eating like breakfast, lunch, and dinner behind a desk. So, like any good Italian guy, we all start off looking Jersey Shore and we all end up looking Tony Soprano. So I was fighting bad genetics from the beginning. So come mid 20s, late 20s, like all of those sandwiches, all of those pizzas that were delivered to my office, they caught up with me. And believe it or not, it was something profound that shook my mindset with regard to my wellness. And it wasn't jujitsu and it wasn't work. It was my mom. My mom was actually sick with stage 4 angiosarcoma cancer, and real tough Italian woman. Just, just didn't bat an eyelash at it. Just, went in shoulder first and really fought this thing. I'll never forget. I was sitting outside as I did in my office. I was outside having a cigarette, as most of us young sales guys were. And I called my mom to see how she was doing. And I said, Ma, how you doing? She says, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm out smoking. And then here comes the Italian guilt, fellas. You're smoking. I'm over here dying and you're smoking. I didn't take an aspirin when I was pregnant with you, and this is what you do to your body. All right, so that was the day that I kind of realized that it was time to change my stars. So I started, it kind of burned into my head that I was going to quit smoking and start taking off some LBs. And during that process, watching a ton of UFC, I was a big UFC fan in high school when it was still like banned in 38 states. Like those bootleg VHS tapes were like gold when I was a kid. And Hoist Gracie, 5'7", 175-pound guy taking out Dan Severn live on TV. Like, you can't beat that. How are you not motivated by that? So I was sitting with my friends and we're watching UFC, we're watching Georges St. Pierre. And I remember saying to one of my friends, oh man, I'd love to learn how to do that. And they're like, Eric, you look like Chris Farley. Like maybe you worry about like cutting down on the Swiss and cheddar first before you worry about becoming a fighter. And
Chris
like that
Farley.
Italian spite just kind of kicked in. And as soon as I was 100 pounds down, I started looking for a jujitsu school. I walked uh, in April 8th of 2011. I walked into South Jersey Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a Ricardo Almeida Association school under the Renzo Gracie banner, and it was maybe 7 miles from my house outside of Philadelphia. So I brought my oldest child, my daughter Ariana, at the time. I took her with me, and we had walked into an advanced class. So that's kind of a different animal than walking into like a fun fundamentals class, right? Because we walked in and Randori was taking place already. So they were already live training. And it's a room full of black. Like you could hear a pin drop. Like you didn't hear anyone grunting or like ow, like nothing. It was a literal sea of bodies just putting in work.
The coach comes over to Eric and he brings Frankie Edgar over to him. And he's like, "There you go, Eric. We got somebody for you to spar with here."
Yeah, the Mad Enforcer comes over. No, I listen. I got a Mad Enforcer. It wasn't Frankie. Frankie, although that would have been. I have to tell you, as a UFC fan, it's tough to train in an environment that is very UFC fueled. I mean, because you got to figure at the time you had not just Frankie was fighting. Ricardo had his last fight when I had just started. You had Dante Rivera was on just coming off of the heels of Ultimate Fighter. Drew Puzon was still fighting in Ring of Combat. I mean, there's just a ton of people. Tom DeBlas, famous Tom DeBlas, had just opened up his school in Toms River. So it was a small community. And because it was still small, we were going to other people's schools. We were visiting other schools in the community, and people were coming to our school to do clinics. So we got on a first name basis with all these people. And I have to tell you, starting at the beginning, having Ricardo Almeida walk into a room and start teaching a class, like you're kind of like, wait,
Yeah.
like, what do you
Yeah.
do with that? Like,
You're like,
you're
wait a
supposed
minute,
to
there's
like,
a legend here?
yeah, and that happened more. It happened with Frankie. Like, I'm kind of like the first time I get to train with one of these guys or take a clinic, and I get like, forget it. Like, let Frankie say like, hey, that's a good position. I become like the vulture in Looney Tunes. I'm like, but I walk into this place and you could hear a pin drop. And I look at my daughter and I'm like, we're gonna do this. Like you and I are gonna do this. And we signed up that day. My daughter made it through to just about high school, sporadically through college, and now she comes the day before she needs to ask me for something. It's like, hey, can I come to jujitsu with you? And I'm like, yeah, but my two little girls, my Sophie and Evie, who are now 17 and 16, trained all the way through middle school. My son Michael, different story. He got in at 5, started competing in jujitsu at 6, started doing both jujitsu and like club wrestling at 7, and just didn't stop and kept doing jujitsu and wrestling through high school, through his senior year, and now he's at college and he still hits the mats when he can. He's a kid that similar to myself, was able to figure out the code in bringing stuff out of jujitsu into the real world. And I like to say that he got that from just like, having the smartest old man on earth, but he's a pretty smart kid himself, and he probably didn't need me for that.
Frank, because this is interesting for our listeners to hear, Eric, because both Eric and Frank, they have had sales training and proper mindset for sales training before they started jujitsu. So, can you give a perspective on that? Because, I think a lot of times we talk about applying the principles of jujitsu to people's careers. But like in this situation, I think I talked about this in Frank's podcast. If anybody wants to look back at Frank's podcast, something like maybe number 12 or somewhere around there, 11 or 12 episode. But I asked Frank this same question, do you think that your experience in sales training helped you on the mat?
I want to say, yes, but I think it's more of the social aspect that it helped with. I think it built the community around me. I brought to jujitsu was this initially this thought that like somehow I was gonna like learn in 2 years to be like a hobbyist fighter, and like that would be my thing, and then I get to tell all my friends I'm a hobbyist fighter. And what happened was throughout that first of all, you find out that there is no such thing as a hobbyist fighter, right? Those guys that compete in MMA, amateur and pro, that's a 7-day-a-week job for them. That is everything they put in their body. Every day is training. It's 3-a-day trainings. They work to train, they train to live. So I realized early that just even that notion was disrespectful, that you could just be a hobbyist fighter, right? What I learned more so than anything was the rules and principles of jujitsu that I could parlay back to learning and development, how I could take things that came in clearer, and closer than the horizon line all of a sudden that I was seeing, and all it took was a different environment, right? Like making those mental connectors. If you don't mind, I'd love to give you guys an example of this from something that happened this week, if you guys humor me.
Of course, of course.
My professor, my head instructor, is Steve Bongiorno. He is a black belt under Ricardo. He received his 5th stripe on his black belt on Tuesday, which is like a 20-year promotion. So everyone came out for that, and Ricardo came out for that. And I hadn't seen Ricardo Almeida in years. Like I said, as the school system builds and more people have schools and the community grows, it's less likely that I'm going to rub elbows with these people on a weekly basis. Sometimes it's more like a bi-yearly basis at this point, you know? So I was just intrigued. I wanted to tell Ricardo everything that he had missed, you know, from the last time I saw him up to and including my black belt ceremony, which took place in December of 2024. So I was just waiting with bated breath. And, you know, I knew I didn't want to crowd him before his seminar, before his promotion that he was doing. So I waited, and I'm glad I did, because what wound up happening was I'm sitting, you know, crisscross applesauce on the mats, as you are wont to do with your peers when someone that's a higher belt is talking. Ricardo began to speak, and what he was basically addressing to my peers was a sales training that I perform for people right out of college. And it's mind-blowing. It's nothing I ever put on video. It's nothing that I ever talked to him about, but it speaks volumes to the psychology of both jiu-jitsu, business, just success. How about that? Let's just talk success, right? And what he was saying is that something happens when you go into that locker room and you take off whatever gear you came in with. You unbutton your shirt, you undo your tie, right? Now you put on your rash guard, and it's like a rubber band. You're fighting it down to your waist, right? And now you're putting on your pants. And how do these strings go? And this crazy string is popping out wrong. And as you're going through these permutations, layer by layer, you're stripping away the guy that came in, and you're building the best person you can be on the mats. With every piece of uniform you put on, it's a layer of your mind that gets flipped. Okay, I am no longer Eric, the casual guy listening to the Ramones in my car. I'm a black belt. I'm a black belt, and there's what, 8 new people in class today? It's time to act as if. And to do that, you get yourself mentally prepared. You know, ironically enough, in sales training, I talk about dressing for success. And I say, listen, it's easy to throw on a shirt and sweatpants and come into a call center. It's a lot harder to dress up. But like, and I could go through the annals of studies that they talk about, like, you know, just by dressing up, you feel more confident, your back straightens, your voice is more articulate. There's a ton of psychology, a ton of research that's gone into that. But what I stress is the role. That's important to me, the role. The role of being a professional in this business. You are no longer a kid. You are no longer in a frat house. You are no longer in mom and dad's basement. You're in a Fortune 100 company. That's a $100,000 sales seat I'm about to give you. Act as if. Act as if you belong here. Act as if that you're going to come in every day and chase the dragon and hit your numbers and be a success. Do that. It starts with putting on the successful mindset. And for me, it's always been putting on a shirt and tie. Even in learning and development, I've had bosses, I'll never forget, I had a boss at Freedom Mortgage. He used to tell me, like, why are you wearing a tie? Like, take the tie off. You're making me uncomfortable. And I would say, I have a class today. And for me, I not only wanted to dress for success to feel like I belong up here, but from a facilitator standpoint, I want to dress a peg higher than my audience just for the attention aspect. You know, when you think about it, you're in a conference room full of people. Everyone's in throwovers and jeans, and a guy walks in a 3-piece suit. It's instinct. Everybody shuts up. They think that guy has something to say, right?
Man
That's my
presence.
first
I'm gonna,
development. Yeah.
Eric, I'm gonna chime in. There's a book, Cialdini's Power of Persuasion. And in this book, he talks about experiments that they've done with people dressing in suits crossing the road versus people dressed in sweatpants crossing the road. And it's basically, if you're dressed in a suit and you cross when you're not supposed to, the majority of people will follow you. If you're dressed in sweatpants and a sweatshirt and you cross when you're not supposed to, most people won't. And they don't even know it. They don't even know it because for some reason, when you dress in this suit, people feel that there's an authority and a sincerity there subconsciously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can speak about jujitsu on that, Frank. The mindset of putting on a gi, it's a different mindset for me. I mean, I don't. Some people, they prefer to train just in no gi, and other people prefer just the gi, and some people don't mind both. But I have conversations like this with my students all the time. How even if you don't enjoy training in the gi, get into the gi anyways because it's a completely different mindset. When you put the gi on, you feel different. You know, you step on the mat with more charisma, more confidence, more I feel better that way. And most of the time when I explain it that way, a lot of my students actually stop and think about it and they say, yeah, actually, you're right. I do feel so much better when I put that gi on. So it's interesting. Just wanted to give my little perspective on the jujitsu
Yeah,
thing
Yeah,
there.
man. Anything,
absolutely.
even if you were taking for your example with Nogi, right? I come into SJBJJ dressed in my suit and tie. I just got finished teaching a class of 50 people. Just the process of taking this gear off and putting on my Nogi trunks and getting my rash guard on and putting maybe my knee brace on and maybe taping up my fingers and getting my mouth guard and rinsing, all of that are steps in preparing myself to be the best guy that I can be. I'm not just a casual hobbyist guy at SJBJJ. I run the fitness program there 3 days a week for everyone from people cutting weight for fights all the way down to soccer moms and golfer dads that just want to, work out in a different place than a gym. I'm a black belt there. I run open mats and fundraisers there. There's a responsibility that comes with that belt, and that responsibility is perception is reality. So act accordingly. So that's something that I brought back and forth between sales and jujitsu, and it came full circle for me this week, thanks to Professor Ricardo Almeida.
That's awesome.
Well, we love that inside peek, we love that inside peek into that seminar. So we definitely thank you for sharing that. That's big. And I think it's something important, especially for the younger generation, especially for them, because everything has become so casual that formality is out the window. And it is nice to be comfortable, but I do agree with you that the way you dress and also right?
Sure.
Professional posture and posture in jujitsu. They have also done studies where they check your testosterone if you're slumped for 5 minutes versus if you sit up straight back, chest out, shoulders back. Your testosterone actually goes up from your posture.
Wow.
So think about that. The way you dress, the way you posture, it all comes together.
Yeah,
Right. And Jason, you teach us a lot about posture and jujitsu.
Yeah, and the older we get, the more testosterone we need to naturally give ourselves.
that's facts. If all it takes is just posturing up, I'm good with that. I have to say, one of the greatest things that I got from jujitsu that I do bring to business every day is patience. I'm an impatient guy by nature, instinctively. I don't like to wait. I don't like being stuck in traffic. I'm a big nudge to my wife if she's taking too long to, like, come on, we gotta go. I don't want to be late. I don't want to be late. That's kind of my mentality. And what jujitsu teaches me and refreshes my memory with weekly, just breathe, man. Just breathe. There is a black belt named Jay Rigglebuto who was famously Nicky Rod's manager when he first got onto the scene. He was on Joe Rogan with Nicky. And Jay, I believe, currently is with the judges reps for, yeah, I don't know. I have to get the lockdown where he's at lately, but he's just taken over the world in jiu-jitsu. And he used to train, not only train, but teach at SJBJJ at my academy. And one of the things that he taught me early on is a phrase that I actually use with my students when it comes to like assessment taking. I'm like, life is filled with moments that all you can do is breathe through. Jiu-jitsu just happens to be one of them. Like, this
Yeah,
is just something you're going to have to breathe your way through.
right. Keeping that composure, right?
Yep.
Eric, I have a question for you. So I was thinking a lot about connecting the corporation world, the corporate America and jujitsu today, and because I knew we were going to be meeting today. And one of the things I thought of was the word complacency. So in the workplace, people can sometimes become complacent, where they just kind of like go through the motions. They go to work, go through the motions,
Yeah.
punch in, punch out, you know,
Quiet quitting, as they say.
and And I think in jujitsu, we also kind of sometimes get stuck on plateaus. You know, you get your blue belt and you're, you know, working on going from blue belt to purple belt. And it can sometimes be, you know, it's a longer journey for some people than it is for others to go from one belt to another. But the plateauing, the feeling of plateauing, you know, you get your blue belt and then it's like you get that plateau of like, am I going to really get any better? Or you start rolling with purple belts and you start thinking, man, maybe I'm not really getting better. Maybe I'll never be really at purple belt level, you know?
Yeah,
So I wanted to get your perspective on that concept of plateauing on the mats, plateauing in jujitsu, and plateauing in your career,
yeah.
and what you thought and how you think the mindset there of jujitsu can kind of help with that.
So jujitsu is an interesting sport just in general because it doesn't have a belt system that either one of us grew up with in like your karate, your 80s, 70s, early 90s karate schools. Like it just seemed like when I was a kid, every 6 months we had to pay $1,000 and you got a new belt. Like that's kind of how that went. And then there were like 14-year-olds walking around saying, I'm a seventh degree black belt. And you're like jujitsu is kind of like jujitsu is not for the person that needs immediate gratification, right? Jujitsu is a long process. It's 8 to 12 years of grinding 2, 3 classes a week, every week to get a black belt. There's only a few. Think about the promotions. You got blue, purple, brown, and black. There's 4 belts. There's no rainbow. There's no cascade of colors here. It takes you 12 years to get through 4 promotions, right? Like it's not for
Wait,
the
so
person
me
that
wearing
has
all
blue
those
collar.
colored belts haven't mattered?
It really is for the person that at the very least it teaches you that you have to just stay in the grind. And one of the things that I get, again, I have to give due and proper to Steve Bongiorno. I don't want to use a line that's his and then get scolded for it tomorrow on the mats. Steve Bongiorno always says to me, he said, whenever you feel like you're plateauing, he said, ask yourself, could you beat you 6 months ago? And if the answer is yes, then you're still making gains forward and you need to respect that. And I feel the same way in sales. Sales is a law of averages, right? At the end of the day, good leads, bad leads, cold leads, Glengarry leads, it's about the effort. It's about the time you put into the calls, right? And the person that puts the most time into their craft comes out successful. Maybe it's not today or tomorrow that I beat that purple belt that I've been training with, right? But if I stay at it, then maybe Friday's my day. Well, I've got 100 leads in front of me and I'm going to start calling them. And the first 10 people told me to go pound sand. But if I stay on that list and I keep grinding, by Friday, I may have a book of business. That consistency is what jujitsu teaches and what you have to bring to that sport. Because, like I said, if you need like a little tchotchke every 2 months, this is not the game for you.
No.
Yeah.
And the funny
Frank,
thing is, Eric, even when you get your new belt, well, at least me, when I got my blue belt and when I got my purple belt, both times I was like, I don't even want it. I don't even feel like I'm here yet. I don't even feel like
Yes.
I'm here.
Every belt is an existential crisis for me. Every single
Yes.
belt.
You feel
Because I
my
don't want
pain.
this. I
Yes.
don't deserve this. I'm only getting this because I work here, because I swept the floor. Like I will give myself, forget the fact, 2 pros, 10 amateur tournaments. I MC for 3 different promotions. I've run 10 fundraisers. Like I've been a fixture in my local jujitsu community, in this little microcosm community, and I will still find every reason in the world to say I don't deserve what stipend I'm getting on my belt. I'll tell myself, and the worst was black belt, guys. The worst imposter syndrome I've ever felt in my life. And I felt it a couple times in business. I can't lie to you. The very first time that I got promoted to a management role in sales, I thought, I'm just a drone. I'm just a guy in the foxhole. I shouldn't be watching. I shouldn't be responsible for other humans. Like, don't do this to me. And then the next time I felt it was, ironically enough, was black belt. Black belt was when I really was the hardest. Actually, that's wrong. Let's me rewind that. I think learning and development was the next. Because I spent so much time in a branch sales world that once I started working for corporate, now it's coming back to me. I have memories of calling my dad from California, from Pasadena, where like my onboarding was for this bank at the time, who was hiring me as their first corporate trainer from the field. And I'm like, Dad, all these people have like double doctorates. Like, I'm a kid from Queens. What am I doing? Like, I need to get out of here. I need to get on the first plane out of Pasadena. That imposter syndrome hit me again right after I got my black belt in 2024, like going into 2025. I wanted it. I knew I was close to it. I was a fourth stripe brown belt and I was salivating at the mouth. And I'm thinking about the party I'm going to throw and the family that's going to come down from Connecticut and New York. And I'm looking at friends of mine that are four stripe brown belts. I'm like, hey, we should do a thing together. When this, like, I got way over my knees, and then what wound up happening is that be careful what you wish for because I got it. And as soon as I got it, to be fair, there was a big party. A couple of my really close training partners were getting promoted with me that day, came, families, hugs, toasts, everything you can imagine. And the very next class where I had to tie that black belt on, I was like, I suck. I'm terrible. I should never wear this again. And that was probably, I think, and I don't want to overstep again, but I want to say that that feeling just started going away recently. Now I say that and I'll have anxiety tomorrow, right? But for now, I could say that I'm just starting to feel like I have a place, up on the wall with the other black belts. But that imposter syndrome is real, and it's real in business. It's real in
Mm.
jiu-jitsu.
In
It's real in a
everything.
recreational sport.
It's in everything. Absolutely. And I feel the same thing when I went from business to teaching. I remember standing in front of a class like, I don't belong here. What am I doing here? Like, I'm not a teacher. I'm not trained for this. I don't know this. And that is just part of the growth process. It's just part of the process. And I think everybody feels it.
I think that the same rule applies in jujitsu that applies in life. And that rule is sometimes you get the belt that you've earned, and sometimes you get the belt that you still have to grow into.
Mm,
And I think sometimes
mm.
I've gotten the roles that I've earned, and I think sometimes I've gotten the roles that I've had to grow into.
Yeah,
That's nicely said.
being careful of what you wish for. You strive for that promotion. Because you go from every belt rank is a in jujitsu is like, oh, I'm going to strive to become a blue belt. I'm going to strive to get to purple belt. I'm going to strive to get to brown belt. When you have that kind of mindset where you think that there's like an end, where you're like, okay, if I once I get my purple belt, I'll be able to do this. You
Yeah.
know, there isn't an end. It's a journey. It's a journey. And it needs to be that kind of mindset, even in the workplace.
It's funny, one of the last things Ricardo said at that seminar this week was, as he was putting the fifth stripe on Steve Bongiorno, and he looked at all of us and said, remember, a black belt that doesn't keep training, can they really consider themselves a black belt? And I went, ooh, gut shot. I better never quit.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, this is so much valuable insight. I feel like before we leave today's podcast, there was something that you talked about in the pre-interview when we talked about the drop kick Murphys, because I told for our audience, for our listeners and our viewers, we are based out of the Boston area. So I told Eric that's where we were, and then he gave me a story about Boston and his story about the famous rock band, the Dropkick Murphys, that are out of Boston. So Eric, can you tell our listeners about this?
Sure. So sitting still is not something I'm good at, right? I have a lot of things that I play around with. I like to say that I'm a jack of many digital trades and a master of none, right? So one of the things that I do part time is I write for a music magazine. There's a little magazine in Philadelphia in my demographic that I've written for. There's a more national magazine called Soundcheck magazine that I write for. And then I have my own little media site that I kind of archive my stuff on. It started off honestly as I wanted to be a writer when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I really, really wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write screenplays and I wanted to write comic books and I wanted to write. And one of the last things that my mom did before she passed away from cancer in 2013 was she wrote me a note that was to be given to me after she passed. One for my sister, one for my dad, one for myself. And in that note, she said, I'm proud of you for, supporting your family and doing what you have to do and growing in your career. But I really wish you'd start writing again because I know that that was a joy of yours. And that got me right in the fields, as I'm sure you can imagine. and I started just picking up just ad hoc, just writing gigs, like covering a show, doing an album review here and there. I'm a big music guy. I spent my teenage years hanging out in Greenwich Village, over by CBGB. I'm a big punk and metal fan, bigger punk fan than metal fan. And one thing led to another, and I started talking about sales skills. Let's tie this all together to the Dropkick Murphys, shall we? All right, sales skills. One of the things that I learned is that my particular brand of skills works really, really well in the music industry. And I found this out because my editor in chief for the smaller magazine in Philadelphia a few years back was going through some health issues, and she had asked me to step up and help out with the magazine. Now, this wasn't for pay work, this was just being a good soul. Initially, I said, yeah. And what I realized is that booking gigs to cover and albums to review and people to interview requires meeting a gatekeeper, pleading your case, getting past a gatekeeper, pleading your case, finding a need, showing what you have to offer that could suffice that need, right? All of that plays in the music industry. And I learned that when I was helping my editor book gigs for the magazine. I'm like, I'm really kind of good at this, like getting interviews with rock stars. Like, how did I get here? How did I, a Gen Xer that is now talking to like Matthew Sweet, like in an hour and a half long interview? And I'm like, how did this happen? It happened through my sales skills, guys. So when I started booking my own shows that I wanted to cover, my own albums I wanted to review, and my own interviews I wanted to do for myself, I started leaning towards what I know. And I started just tapping the punk scene because that was officially where I left my music career off, right on the doorstep of CBGB's in the Bowery of New York City. So I picked up right there. And the Dropkick Murphys were wildly responsive to me in a way that I am still baffled by. I have been tapped to cover their Philadelphia shows, their Atlantic City shows, most importantly, their stops for their St. Patrick's Day tour in Pennsylvania every year. So if you don't know, the Dropkick Murphys' famous St. Patty's Day show is at the House of Blues in Boston. Every year, good luck getting a ticket. They're on sale now for next year. All right. But what people don't know, it's like a 6 or 7 stop tour that they do to get to Boston on St. Patty's Day. And unlike their summer tours, they tend to stop off in very blue collar neighborhoods. They're a big union supporter band. I love that about them. I come from a hardworking, like blue collar family. Aside from my dad, who was a sales guy, like my grandparents, my uncles, longshoremen, cops, up in New York. So I love the work that they do for the community in Boston, for firemen, police, any union workers who's lost their breadwinner in their family. They do fundraisers for. I just always got a kick out of that. So I tap them, and I wind up getting on this journey that leads me to these blue collar towns once a year, every year for the St. Patty's Day show, whether it's Reading or Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. It's like some like hardworking town that they stop off in as like a tip of the hat on their way to Boston. And I've covered them, I want to say, for the last 5 years or so. So I am the only New Yorker that loves singing Tessie,
Yeah.
which is unapologetically and aggressively Boston Red Sox song. Don't tell any of
Don't
my
sing it
other
in the New
friends.
York subways.
Yeah, no, we don't know. No one's allowed to know that in my family. But Tessie's a favorite on my playlist. So I wound up putting myself in a position where I get the privilege and the honor of seeing that band 2 or 3 times a year, doing write-ups and taking photos and just kind of helping their PR along. They've never not done right by me. It's just weird, man. It's weird how sales skills open up all of these different doors. I mean, here I am as a sales trainer by day. And now I use that same energy and that same passion and that same focus to teach, fitness classes, wellness classes at my academy to rooms of 15, 18 people 3 times a week. Well, that's the skill. That's my day job skill that I bring with me to jujitsu. And then I steal from jujitsu and I bring it to training and development. Well, then you have writing, and writing was something that is artistic to me and has nothing to do with business until it does. And now I'm using my business skills to do what I want to do with my writing. So in every facet of my life, that skill set that I learned, was successful with, and then now teach to others has opened up all these different doors for me. Where on any given weekend, it's like, will we go into the fights to cheer on one of my teammates, or are we going to see the Dropkick Murphys in Atlantic City because I have 2 press passes? And it all comes from that time grinding on a sales floor and learning
Yeah.
how to build trust, have conversations, create common denominators, and move forward.
Yeah, the benefits of skill stacking. I think we could do a whole entire episode on skill stacking.
Yeah.
Skill stacking and pivoting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we could do a
Absolutely.
whole episode on it.
That's a
Maybe we'll have Eric come back on and do a whole episode on that.
yeah, I think we're gonna have to do that because it's very inspiring. Oh, I have
I'm humbled by you guys. Thank you.
our pleasure completely. I have a quick question for you. And Jason, I don't know if you have any more, but I definitely want to get this in because a lot of my students, I teach business, are going into business. And in business education, there's not a lot like we teach marketing, we teach investing, accounting, business law. We have a lot, it's like a mini MBA, but not a lot of people talk about sales careers. And I think it's really important. And I do talk about that because I worked with a lot of salespeople and I did it. So I guess my question that I'm going to throw out to you is what do you think, Eric, is one of the greatest benefits of going into the sales industry? And what is one piece of advice you'd give my kids looking to get into that
Oh my
career?
gosh. What a great question. And I'm flattered that I get to address your students with it too. I think that the greatest reason to get into sales is the ability to bet on yourself. You know, any 9 to 5 job, you always say, boy, if I had the power to do X, Y, and Z, boy, if I was in charge of the budget, boy, if I was in charge of marketing. And then you go back to, your Marlboro light outside and your smoke break and go, shifts over and you go back inside. With sales, every day you have the opportunity to change your stars. What career do you have that you could go in and give yourself a raise every day with just a little bit more elbow grease? Frank, I want to tell you a story about my time on the sales floor before I got promoted to sales manager. It was a late night, it was a Thursday night. All the boys were leaving the office. Adjacent to my industrial complex was a little bar. And in that little bar, the Philadelphia Flyers like to hang out sometimes because their training facility was around the corner in Voorhees, New Jersey. So the guys would finish up their cold calling and they'd want to run on down there and see if they could catch Desjardins or somebody in the bar. And I'll never forget this one night. Everyone's packing up laptops, or actually, this is prior to laptops. This is just packing up our portfolios. And one guy stayed on the phone, and I don't forget his name. I won't forget his name. His name was Joe Lanzalotti. Shout out to you, Joe, if you're watching. Joe Lanzalotti watched all of us get up and start packing up our stuff and kept calling. And as we were walking towards the door, we looked behind us. He's making his money. And one by one, all of us walked back to our desks and logged back into our computers. We're like, we're not going to be the ones that leave when this guy is showing us that there's still money to be made, that there's still an opportunity to build a better day, to give ourselves a raise. I never forgot that moment. And I talk about that moment with my students. You have the ability to just commit to dropping the negativity at the door, betting on yourself, marketing yourself, and not being confined to somebody else's perception of what you are worth. That is phenomenal. That is the only reason to get into sales.
Wow.
It's powerful.
Freedom. Freedom.
Now, my advice to your students is simple. When it comes to sales, remember one thing: hard work kicks talent's ass every single day. You could be the best talker. You could be the most articulate speaking the King's English. You could have a double doctorate in business and finance. But if you're not willing to grind, which is what it takes, you have to commit like Jiu-Jitsu, because you're not going to get the big deal today or tomorrow, but if you keep grinding, it may be Friday, right? We talked about that an hour and a half ago. If you commit to it, you will be successful. I've seen hard workers lap talent every single week that I've been in sales since I've started. There's a guy at Freedom Mortgage when I first started in 2001 as a salesperson there. His name was Maurice. Maurice had a speech impediment. True story. He had a phone salesman selling $250,000 loans with a speech impediment. And yet, how was he the number one salesman every single month? I'll tell you how. He was the first face we saw when we got there, and he was the last face we saw when we left. That guy knew he had to play
Damn.
bigger law of averages. Hard work beats talent. That is my advice.
That is great advice. And I am going to make sure every one of my students listens to that advice because it is empowering. It is empowering. It is your habits,
Yeah.
not your innate skill.
Yeah. That's an Aristotle quote. We are what we repeatedly do. Success is not an act, success is a habit.
And that is exactly what you need to think when you go into jiu-jitsu, right?
Right.
You have to, right? So if I'm ever gonna escape from Big Juan's side control, I have to keep this in mind.
Yeah.
Right,
Keep
Jason?
shrimping. Don't
Yeah.
stop. You keep shrimping, and one day you'll get the exit. I promise.
Okay. I know Big Juan's gonna hear this. He likes his shout out, so I gotta give him a shout
I have a
out.
big client in my school too.
A
I
Big
say
Juan,
it would
yeah.
be a lot. It would be a lot more fun if we were rolling instead of me trying to escape from a Macy's Thanksgiving Day balloon. It's laying on top of me.
Big Juan is a big man, but he's solid as hell. And he knows how to use his
Yep.
pressure. Yeah,
Keep
so
shrimping.
I'm gonna keep your advice in mind and keep working hard on my shrimping and see if I can get out one day.
Listen, we are all just walking each other home, right? Like you take everything from everyone you come into contact with because there's something there that can help you tomorrow. That is my
That's
mantra
it.
when it comes to training. I learn from everybody.
That's it. You do. And if you showed up, you're a beast. If you showed up, you're a beast. You can't forget that,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
That's it. Listen, fortune favors the ones that show up. Even when it comes to fitness, I tell my fitness students, forget sales students, forget talking to Marky Ramone of the Ramones. Let's just talk about the people in my exercise class, right? It's the kind of mindset that you have to have where you didn't get unwell or unfit in a day. It took time. This is the kind of commitment that you put in to grinding and not giving up. And then you get to reap the rewards, not just aesthetically, but mentally, emotionally,
Mm.
and internally, physically, willfully for the rest of your life. You know, it's that mindset of, hey, man, I'm not going to give up. This sucks. And the hardest thing about this gig is showing up, right? That's jujitsu, that's the gym, that's work, that's everything. The hardest part of your day is the drive to those places.
Dead on, dead on. I preach that every day to my students. You have to be here. That's half the battle. Come here,
Yeah.
show up. That's what makes you a star. Get out of bed on time and get here.
Show up and grind. The results will come.
There you go. Students, see, it's not just your teacher. This guy's a savage black belt, successful entrepreneur. If you're not going to listen to me, listen to him. Damn it.
I want to quote Steve Jordan one last time when he says, "You don't have to be invincible. You just have to be indestructible."
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your favorite time of the program. It's tap out time, where Frank D'Amelio, also known as the clock burner, gives you all the golden nuggets from this amazing interview. And there are too many to mention. I will do my best to keep it clear, concise, and cogent. Here we go. I want to say, Eric, two things I love that you did. You mentioned your dad and how amazing he is and what a role model he is. And I think that's a beautiful thing that you mentioned that on here. Is he still alive?
He's my guy. He's still alive.
Is he? Okay. I want him to listen
Believe it
to
or not, he's
this.
active with the Jiu-Jitsu school. When we do our New Year's Day open mats, he comes with bagels. When we have a fight night, he comes out. He comes to promotions. He's kind of
That's
like our
awesome.
So
Jiu-Jitsu resident mascot, my dad.
How old is he?
74.
Wow, that's awesome.
74. Man, he
Yeah.
must be an awesome guy. Make sure he listens to this. And I know your mom has passed. I like the way you kind of closed your whole thing talking about the letter she wrote you. And I think that is a beautiful thing too. I think it's very, very sweet that you opened with your dad, you closed with your mom, and I'm sure wherever she is, she's proud of you and for taking her advice from that letter. That is just something that is sweet. It's beautiful. And that's the real essence of life that you shared with us today. That was personal, and we appreciate that.
You know, Frank, I never told my dad what was in my letter until one
Well,
day.
he's gonna know now. Okay, okay.
Until one day I was covering. So my dad is a soulful bluesy rock. He's like, you know, like he likes that those Nashville deep, you know, mournful
Deep and
chords.
gritty. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I wound up covering at the famous Stone Pony in Asbury Park, New Jersey. That's where the Stone Ponies were Springsteen started, Bon Jovi started, right? I wound up covering Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats, which is a bluesy band from Denver. And I said, you know, Dad, why don't you come with me? Why don't you be my plus one? And we get to the Stone Pony, and the outside stage is packed. Like there's thousands of people pressed up against the stage. And even if I got him close to the press pit, he was going to be wildly uncomfortable at his age. And so I go to the manager of the, because I'm not above like looking to use my sales skills to try and make a new friend, right? So I'm like, hey, who's the manager here at the Stone Pony? I said, listen, I'm a writer for that music mag in Philadelphia. That's the name of the mag in Philly, that music mag, if you want to see my archive stuff.
We're gonna put, by the way, we're gonna put all your stuff. You're gonna send Jason all your links for all your writing. It's gonna be in the bottom.
Awesome.
But continue your story.
Yeah,
Continue your
so I,
story.
I I talked to the guy at the Stone Pony. I said, listen, I'm a writer. I have my dad with me. He's a senior citizen. A lot of people. He's not comfortable being so close to the stage. Can you help me out here? Can I put him someplace? And he said, my wife's a writer for Rolling Stone. He goes, I get it. He goes, let me help you out. Put my dad in the sound booth, I guess it would be like whatever that booth is, where they adjust the sound for the concert. They put him in
Yeah.
that above the audience, like his chest was above the heads of everybody. He could see to the stage. So I was standing there with him, and here is this battle-tested sales veteran and his son who just got him the greatest VIP seat of all time. And I put my arm around him and I said, Dad, we're here because of Mom. So he stops and looks at me and goes, what'd you say? I said, we're here because Mom told me I should start writing again. And it led me to the music industry, which led me to bringing you here. You are here in this moment with this amazing, it's not even a seat, this amazing position on the Jersey Shore watching this concert because of one little note that was left to me. And that moment was the closure of that full circle moment. That was like big hug and then horns to the sky. And then yeah,
Damn.
that was a
I
full circle
love
moment.
that. I
Yeah.
love that. That's deep. That's
Yeah.
you know what, and I just gotta give you another shout out because just today in my marketing class, I told my kids two things. I said, always ask. Always ask. When you go to a restaurant, if you want that table, just ask. They might say no, but ask. When you go to a hotel, ask for that upgrade. It's okay. And if you really want something, if you have a legitimate story behind your ask, most people will do anything they can do to help you.
You
And
miss
that's
100% of the
exactly
shots you don't take.
and
That's a
that's
Wayne
exactly
Gretzky
what you
quote.
did. A, you decided to ask, and B, you had a legitimate story behind you. You
Yeah.
told a little bit about your past, you talked about your dad, and they're like, "Yeah, of course we're going to help you."
Yeah.
Case in point right there. I love it. I
Most
love it.
people want to help other people, right? Like
They do.
by nature, like in big masses, people are a lot. But individually, you find that people are just as kind-hearted and sincere as, you wish they were. And that's the one thing that I can say from jujitsu, which has a mat filled with doctors, lawyers, construction workers, unemployed people, students, right? And they all come together for a common goal. And in the music business, at the end of the day, these are all human beings. They're all just guys and gals
Yes.
that just are doing what they love to do. You find out at the end of the day that all these people, again, we're all just trying to walk each other home, man. If someone can do something nice for you, 9 times out of 10, you'll find they will. There's a price to pay for that. And the price to pay for that is the law of reciprocity, which means that when you are the one that has the power to do something nice, it's your
Dead
divine
on.
responsibility to do it.
Dead on. Amen. This is too much wisdom in one short, this is too good. This is too good. I'm just so excited for
We're in
people to
so
listen to
deep
this.
we can't even climb out, Frank.
No,
We're in
we
so deep.
can't. No, there's wisdom after wisdom. It's like being in a buffet, a wisdom buffet. That's what we're at. Um, a couple of other things. I'm going to be very short, very crisp here. You talked about what a lot of our guests talked about. Find out what you love, even if you're doing something you don't like. If there's something that you love to do, extricate that, call it out, pivot, and do that thing, which you did. I like the advice about it's a disaster to be a presenter.
Yeah,
Instead, be a consultant. And I would say that even goes for conversations. When you're having a conversation, don't just spew, listen and ask questions. That is just great
active listening, man.
interpersonal, active listening. That's great interpersonal. You talked about the importance of high trust consulting, being sincere, being honest doesn't always pay in the short term, but it always pays in the long term.
Yeah,
Always. And you can go to sleep and feel good about yourself. I
Dr.
thought you
Jordan
were
Peterson talks about that. If I don't know if you guys follow Dr. Jordan Peterson at all. He's kind of
I know a
like
little of his stuff.
yeah, I mean, I've seen him on Rogan a few times, and just being a jujitsu guy, it kind of like it comes with your membership to the Joe Rogan podcast is getting your first white belt, and I love being motivated by other people. When I read the 12 Principles for Life by Jordan Peterson, and then I read another 12 Principles, I'm like, all right, I'm all out of principles. I have enough principles, but I love what he says about uh, just that. It's about showing up. It's about believing in yourself. Most importantly, Jordan Peterson says it's about honesty. That's he has his biggest advice to whenever a young person in one of these public speaking sessions that he has asks him, "Give me some advice on my future, on my success, on my life, on my marriage." Right? Don't lie.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's a great takeaway, and that's a great call to action, right, Frank, for our listeners. There's so there's so much insight in this episode that we can talk about that we can say is a call to action today, right? So our big call to action is to get our listeners and people who know Eric, people who have had a chance to experience Eric's knowledge in the corporate world as well. Share this podcast because it's very empowering.
This is just something great to listen to on your ride home and inspire you in so many different ways and so many different directions. This is something that people are going to listen to once, twice, three times because there's so much in it. We,
I really
we
appreciate that, by
Eric,
the way, Brett.
Eric, ma'am, thank you so much for, like, I mean, you really opened up your heart and your soul on this one. And, we appreciate this. I hope we get a chance to meet you face to face at some point.
Well, it turns out that I may be coming up your way with my day job in the not too distant future. I'll be heading up and down the Northeast Corridor doing trainings for my day job, and I'm always looking for places to roll. So I'm going to have to look you guys up when I'm in the Boston area.
Yes,
Team
definitely
Team
do that.
Link Webster in Webster, Massachusetts. You come in, and if you want a light roll, I'll roll with you. But if you want to try to see if you can do anything with Big Juan's pressure, you could try that too.
I'll have to keep
Just so
saying
our
to myself,
listener,
just keep shrimping, just keep shrimping.
Yes, yes,
I
yeah.
don't know if no our listeners or our viewers can't actually see Frank's name on this podcast right now, but he has his title for his name on this podcast, the Clock Burner. So just so you know, Eric, the reason why he has the name Clock Burner is this is a reputation that he has in the school. So if you come to our gym and you roll with Frank, he's going to find he has a lot of different skills and techniques on how to burn the clock.
I'm 58 years old. And so when Jason hits the go button, obviously I need to tuck in my gi. I need to retie the belt. I need to make sure everybody else has a partner. You burn 20 seconds off just like that. And I've got a lot of strategies. I'm going to write a book on it,
Mm.
on how to burn clock and survive the cardio.
Can I add a quip
Of
to that?
course. Of course.
Because honestly, the best way that I've ever run the clock is I really like the way you did that. Can I show you something with regards to mid roll? Can I show you something real
I
quick?
like it. That was really good. Let me show you something. Yeah.
I'd love to show you how I can escape that. Can I show you? I know the clock's running, but let me just show you something real quick.
I know
Did you
the clock.
tap to that? No, I just wanted to say something.
No, I want to
Yeah.
show you something real quick. To
I
show you the new
me
book on how to survive being a new black belt, right? When everyone's gunning for you, how to run the clock. Wait, my belt is just yeah.
yeah, got to get the bell. And then you ask them, this is always really polite too. Hey, so tell me, how are you feeling? Do you have any injuries I need to worry about while the clock's running? And they're
Sure,
like,
sure,
no,
sure.
no,
We're
I'm
20
good.
seconds in. How's the knee? Is the
Yeah,
knee okay?
yeah. Like, I just want to make sure I respect you. And what are you trying to work with on your game? What are you trying to work with? I want to be a good training partner here.
Yeah.
We're gonna put this book
That
together.
we're 72 seconds deep. Yeah, all of that. That
That's
5
it.
minutes goes like that.
You get the 5 minutes to 3, and I can go like a normal person. Now you're dealing with a real person, right? So that's the whole strategy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would love to come up and train with you guys. I love visiting schools. I love visiting different environments because
We want to do a whole podcast episode on exactly what you guys are talking about. So we'll come up with like the top 10 ways to burn the clock or ideas of how to burn.
Yes. And by the way, our listeners, please write in the comments how you like to burn clock. for that episode will use some of your ideas too.
For all you
Make sure you
jujitsu
write it
out
in
there.
the notes.
I love that.
All right, Eric. Thank you so much for your time. Really
Oh my God,
appreciate this.
thank
Our
you. This was
listeners are going to
so much
enjoy it.
fun.
And there's definitely something wrong on my end. So I'm going to just leave this because I can't hear anything. I can't hear Eric at all. Jason, just make sure he stays online.
Yeah. All right, no problem. We'll just edit out this part of it. No big
Yes,
deal.
I don't know. I can't.
I'll do some
Frank, thank
editing.
you.
It will still look good. So we all have to kind of say bye one more time.
Yep. Big hug.
All
Big
right.
hug.
Thank
Bam.
you.
Yes,
Big hug.
thank you guys. Thank you.
All
I'll
right.
give you
Thanks, guys. All right. Have a great
fist
day.
palm there.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
guys. Awesome.
Well, there you have it. As we wrap up today's episode, let's take a moment to reflect on the powerful connections we've explored between the art of Jiu-Jitsu and your career. In your workplace and in Jiu-Jitsu, you learn to adapt and navigate challenges. So remember that persistence and the courage to embrace the lessons that you learn are the keys to your growth both on the mat and in your career.